The whispered fear. The Red Fang Cantina buzzed with the usual mix of danger and desperation that drew mercenaries from across the galaxy. Smoke from exotic substances clouded the air, while creatures of every imaginable species traded stories of their latest conquests. These were beings who had carved their names into the stars with blood and fire, who had toppled governments and raised entire worlds for the right price. Yet tonight, something was different. The usual boastful tales had given way to hushed whispers and nervous glances. Even the most battle-scarred veterans seemed to huddle closer to their drinks, as if seeking comfort in the familiar burn of alien alcohol. Korath the Destroyer sat in his usual corner booth, his massive frame casting shadows across the scared metal table. His 6 arms bore the marks of countless battles, each scar a testament to his survival against impossible odds. He had earned his reputation by single-handedly taking down an entire rebel fleet in the Andromeda sector. Yet now his yellow eyes darted nervously around the cantina. Across from him sat HFY, a serpentine creature whose species was known for their cold calculation and merciless efficiency. Her scales shimmered in the dim light as she leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tell me you've heard the reports, Korath. Tell me I'm not losing my mind." The massive warrior's primary hands clenched into fists. 3 more fleets found drifting in the void this week. The Crimson Raiders, the Star Reapers, and even Malek's Iron Legion. All of them gone. Not just gone, HFY corrected, her forked tongue flicking out nervously. Vanished without a trace. No distress calls, no signs of struggle on the long-range sensors. One moment they're there, the next, empty ships floating in space like ghost vessels. Around them, other conversations had taken similar turns. The Bloodclaw Syndicate spoke in hushed tones about their missing scout ships. The Void Hunters, known for their ability to track any prey across the galaxy, admitted they had found no trails to follow. Most disturbing of all, the Nexus information brokers, who knew everything about everyone, claimed they had no data on what was causing these disappearances. Korath took a long drink from his tankard, the alien brew doing little to calm his nerves. "I've fought Saphirian death squads, battled through the crystal mines of Sirian, and survived the plague wars of the Outer Rim. But this is different. We're dealing with something that doesn't fight like anything we've ever seen. Have you seen the security footage from the Thunderstrike incident?" HFY asked, producing a small holographic projector from her utility belt. "One of my contacts in the intelligence network managed to salvage this from a damaged probe." The hologram flickered to life, showing the bridge of a massive mercenary warship. The crew moved about their duties with the confidence of seasoned killers, their weapon systems online and scanning for threats. Suddenly, alerts began blaring across their control panels. "Contact on port side," shouted one of the crew members. "But I can't get a clear reading. It's like they're not fully there." The captain, a grizzled veteran with cybernetic implants covering half his face, barked orders. "Full power to shields. Charge all weapons. Whatever it is, we'll blast it to." The transmission cut to static. When it cleared, the bridge was empty. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply vacant. The crew's belongings remained where they had left them, but the beings themselves had vanished without explanation. "Impossible," Korath muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. He had seen too much in his career to dismiss anything as truly impossible. "There's more," HFY said grimly. 3 days ago, Captain Torvik of the Skull Crushers managed to transmit a partial message before his fleet disappeared. He said they were being hunted by beings that looked familiar. Bipedal, roughly the same size as many galactic species, but something about them was wrong. She activated another recording, this one filled with static and interference. Torvik's panicked voice crackled through the speakers. "They move like shadows. No heat signatures, no energy readings until they're right on top of you. And their faces, by the void, they look almost like us, but their eyes, there's something behind those eyes that's older than fear itself." The recording dissolved into screams and static. Other mercenaries had begun to gather around their table, drawn by the forbidden topic everyone wanted to discuss, but feared to name. Grix, a insectoid warrior whose species communicated through pheromone releases, joined the circle. His chemical signals reeked of anxiety as he spoke through his translation device. My hive mind has been analyzing the attack patterns. Whatever these creatures are, they're not random. They're targeting specific fleets, specific leaders. It's as if they know exactly who we are and what we're capable of. That's what scares me most, added Zora, a cybernetically enhanced human who had turned mercenary after her homeworld was destroyed. I've accessed every database in the galaxy. There's no record of a species matching these descriptions. No known technology that could make ships disappear like this. It's as if they materialized from nothing. An uncomfortable silence fell over the group. In a galaxy where information was power and knowledge meant survival, encountering something completely unknown was more terrifying than any weapon. Korath's comm device chirped, and he glanced at the incoming message. His face, already pale beneath his alien features, went completely white. What is it? Vex High demanded. Priority alert from the Mercenary Guild headquarters. They're calling an emergency assembly. All major faction leaders are being summoned to Nexus Prime. His voice dropped to a whisper. The message says they've identified the threat. The cantina fell completely silent as word spread. The Mercenary Guild hadn't called an emergency assembly in over 2 centuries, not since the great AI uprising that had nearly consumed the galaxy. Whatever they had discovered, it was significant enough to unite sworn enemies under one roof. As the mercenaries began filing out to prepare for departure to Nexus Prime, none of them noticed the figure sitting alone in the shadows of the farthest booth. The being appeared unremarkable, bipedal, average height, with a kind of face that would blend into any crowd. But if they had looked closer, they might have seen something that would have sent them fleeing in terror. The figure's eyes held a depth of calculation and purpose that spoke of a species that had clawed its way to the top of evolution's ladder not through size or strength, but through intelligence, adaptability, and an absolute refusal to give up. These were the eyes of a predator that had learned to hide among its prey. Dr. Sarah Chen finished her drink and stood up, her movements casual and unhurried. She had gathered enough intelligence for one evening. The mercenaries were finally beginning to understand that something had changed in the galaxy's power structure, though they didn't yet comprehend the full scope of what they were facing. As she walked toward the exit, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had spent centuries being dismissed as a primitive species confined to a single, unremarkable world. The galaxy's predators had looked at Earth and seen only easy prey, beings too weak and slow to pose any real threat. They had been catastrophically wrong. The mercenaries were right about one thing. Humans did look like many other galactic species. The bipedal form was common throughout the galaxy, and from a distance, a human could easily be mistaken for dozens of other races. But that superficial similarity masked fundamental differences that ran deeper than genetics. Humans were persistent hunters who had evolved to chase their prey across vast distances until exhaustion claimed their victims. They were pack hunters who had learned to coordinate complex strategies across multiple groups. Most importantly, they were adaptive hunters who could learn from each encounter and modify their tactics accordingly. For the past 5 years, humanity had been systematically studying the galaxy's mercenary forces. They had observed their tactics, analyzed their weaknesses, and prepared countermeasures for every conceivable scenario. The recent disappearances were not random attacks. They were surgical strikes designed to eliminate specific threats while gathering intelligence on potential future targets. The mercenaries had built their reputations on fear and overwhelming force. They were used to enemies who would either flee in terror or meet them in direct combat. They had no experience dealing with a species that preferred to strike from shadows, to turn their enemies' strengths against them, and to always have 3 backup plans for every operation. As Sarah stepped out into the artificial night of the space station, she activated a small communication device hidden in her jacket. "Control, this is Observer 7. The targets are responding as predicted. They're gathering at Nexus Prime for what they believe will be a strategic planning session. The response came through her earpiece, spoken in the calm, measured tones that characterized human military communications. Understood. Observer 7. Phase 2 is authorized. Let them gather their forces. It will make the demonstration more effective. Sarah looked up at the stars visible through the station's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, the greatest military minds humanity had ever produced were putting the finishing touches on a plan that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of power. The mercenaries thought they were the apex predators of space, but they were about to learn that Earth's children had been watching, learning, and preparing. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and it would start with a lesson the galaxy would never forget. The hunter had become the hunted, and the mercenaries didn't even know the game had already begun. The hunter becomes the hunted. The Nexus Prime Assembly Hall had never hosted such a gathering. Representatives from every major mercenary faction in the galaxy sat in tense silence, their usual territorial disputes temporarily set aside in the face of an unknown threat. The massive chamber, built to accommodate hundreds of different species, hummed with nervous energy as deadly beings who had terrorized star systems found themselves united by fear. Admiral Korath commanded the central platform, his 6 arms gesturing as he addressed the assembly. Behind him, holographic displays showed the locations of the missing fleets, creating a pattern that painted a chilling picture across known space. In the past 6 months, we have lost over 40 major fleets, he announced, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. Not defeated in battle, not destroyed by superior firepower, simply erased. Our most experienced captains, our most advanced vessels, gone without explanation. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The crystalline collective, beings of living mineral who communicated through harmonic resonance, created a low thrumming sound that spoke of deep unease. The swarm queens, hive minds that controlled millions of warrior drones, emitted pheromone clouds that reeked of confusion and anger. Intelligence reports suggest we're dealing with a new species, continued Admiral Korath. Beings that appear similar to several known races but possess capabilities we've never encountered. They strike without warning, leave no survivors, and disappear before our reinforcements can arrive. From the shadows of the upper galleries, Dr. Sarah Chen observed the proceedings with professional interest. She wasn't alone. Dozens of human operatives had infiltrated the assembly, their unremarkable appearances allowing them to blend seamlessly with the crowd. After centuries of being overlooked and underestimated, humanity had turned their anonymity into their greatest weapon. Commander Vexhai slithered to the center platform, her scales reflecting the harsh chamber lights. I've analyzed every available piece of evidence. These attackers don't behave like any predator species we know. They don't seek territory or resources. They appear to be studying us, learning our weaknesses. Learning? Scoffed Warlord Thrak, whose species had conquered 12 star systems through pure aggression. What could primitives learn from the greatest warriors in the galaxy? As if summoned by his arrogance, the chamber's lights suddenly dimmed. Emergency klaxons began blaring as the station's defense systems detected an impossible energy signature approaching at high speed. Impossible, shouted the station commander. Our sensors show nothing on approach vectors, but proximity alarms are going crazy. Through the chamber's massive viewport, shapes began materializing from what appeared to be empty space. Ships unlike anything in the mercenary databases seemed to phase into existence, their hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. They moved with a fluid grace that defied conventional physics, like predators stalking through cosmic darkness. The mercenary leaders rushed to the viewports, their various forms of vision straining to comprehend what they were seeing. The ships were sleek and organic-looking, with no obvious weapons or engine signatures, yet they moved through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. Full battle stations, ordered Admiral Korath. Deploy all defensive fleets. Show these ghosts what real warriors can do. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of mercenary vessels, representing the most advanced military technology from across the galaxy, surged forth from concealed positions around Nexus Prime. Weapons that could shatter planets charged to full power as targeting systems locked onto the mysterious intruders. But the enemy was already gone. Where the strange ships had been moments before, now there was only empty space. The mercenary fleets found themselves firing at shadows, their massive weapons illuminating nothing but cosmic dust. "Where did they go?" demanded Commander Vexhai, her serpentine form coiled in frustration. The answer came from within their own ranks. Across the mercenary fleet, ship after ship began reporting the same impossible phenomenon. Boarding parties had materialized inside their vessels, bypassing shields, armor, and security systems as if they were mere illusions. "This is Dreadnought Vengeance," crackled a panicked transmission. "We're under attack. They're inside our ship somehow. They're not using transporters or shuttles. They're just here." More reports flooded the communication channels. The intruders weren't destroying the ships or slaughtering the crews. Instead, they were systematically disabling weapons systems, neutralizing command crews, and taking control of vessel after vessel with surgical precision. Sarah Chen smiled as she watched the mercenaries' confusion grow. Phase 2 was proceeding exactly as planned. The attack wasn't intended to destroy the mercenary forces. It was designed to demonstrate humanity's complete technological superiority while revealing the futility of resistance. On the command deck of the lead mercenary vessel, Captain Gorth faced an enemy unlike anything in his experience. The being before him appeared almost mundane. Bipedal, roughly his own height, with features that could have belonged to any of a dozen species. But there was something in the creature's eyes that spoke of depths beyond imagination. "You're human," Gorth whispered, the word escaping his lips like a curse. "Guilty as charged," replied Major Alex Rodriguez, his voice carrying the calm confidence of someone who held all the advantages. "Though I suspect your definition of human is about to undergo some significant revision." Around them, Rodriguez's team worked with quiet efficiency. They moved through the ship like they had built it themselves, their every action coordinated through communication methods the mercenaries couldn't detect or disrupt. Where mercenary species relied on brute force and intimidation, humans employed precision and adaptation. "Impossible," Gorth snarled, reaching for his sidearm. "Humans are primitives. Your species hasn't even left your own solar system." Rodriguez caught Gorth's wrist before the mercenary could draw his weapon, his grip carrying a strength that spoke of evolutionary adaptation under high gravity and hostile conditions. "That's what we wanted you to think," Rodriguez explained patiently. "While you were busy conquering worlds and terrorizing civilizations, we were watching, learning, preparing." Through the ship's viewport, Gorth could see other vessels in his fleet suffering the same fate. Human boarding parties had somehow bypassed every defense, appearing inside sealed vessels, as if matter itself obeyed their commands. "Your species builds impressive ships," Rodriguez continued, releasing Gorth's wrist. "But you design them to fight enemies who think like you. We don't think like you. We don't fight like you. We don't lose like you." Back in the assembly hall, the mercenary leaders watched their fleets being systematically neutralized by an enemy they couldn't even properly see. The mysterious ships had returned, but now they remained visible, floating in perfect formation around Nexus Prime like apex predators surrounding cornered prey. A new voice filled the chamber, transmitted on all frequencies with crystal clarity. It belonged to Fleet Admiral Elena Vasquez, commander of humanity's first interstellar expeditionary force. "Citizens of the galaxy," her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "For too long, you have operated under the assumption that might makes right, that the strong can prey upon the weak without consequence. Today, you learned that assumption was incorrect." The holographic displays around the chamber shifted, now showing tactical readouts of every mercenary vessel in the system. Each ship's location, armament, crew complement, and operational status appeared with devastating accuracy. "We are humanity, Admiral Vasquez continued, "We are the species you dismissed as primitive and weak. We are the beings you thought were confined to a single unremarkable world. We are your new reality." Admiral Korath stepped forward, his 6 arms trembling with rage. "What do you want? Territory? Resources? Name your price." "We want what every apex predator wants," came the reply. "Recognition of our position in the food chain." The mercenary leaders exchanged glances of growing horror as the implications became clear. This wasn't a conquest or a negotiation. It was a demonstration of power by beings who had already won. For centuries, mercenary forces have terrorized civilian populations, destroyed peaceful worlds, and profited from suffering. Admiral Vasquez's voice continued, "This ends now. You will disband your fleets, return to your home systems, and find new occupations. Any who refuse will be removed from the equation." "You can't be serious," protested Warlord Thrak. "We are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. No single species can challenge our combined might." The response was swift and decisive. Thrak's personal flagship, a dreadnought that had never been defeated in battle, simply vanished from sensors. When it reappeared moments later, it was completely powerless and drifting. Every system had been disabled, every weapon neutralized, every crew member rendered unconscious by methods the mercenaries couldn't begin to understand. "The demonstration is complete," Admiral Vasquez announced. "You have one standard galactic day to begin compliance. After that, we will begin permanent solutions to persistent problems." As the human ships began to fade from view once again, Admiral Korath slumped into the nearest chair. Around him, the greatest military minds in the galaxy struggled to comprehend what they had witnessed. "How?" whispered Commander Vexai. "How did a species we've never heard of develop such capabilities?" Dr. Sarah Chen stood up from her position in the shadows, no longer bothering to maintain her cover. Her presence was noted by several mercenaries, but none moved to stop her as she walked toward the central platform. "You want to know how?" she asked, her voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. "You spent millennia conquering and destroying, while we spent millennia learning and growing. You developed weapons to kill, while we developed tools to survive. You built empires through fear, while we built civilizations through cooperation." She gestured toward the viewport where the stars shone with new meaning. "Every species you've terrorized, every world you've conquered, every civilian population you've brutalized, they all had something to teach us. We listened to their stories, learned from their mistakes, and adapted their knowledge to our needs. You gave us the greatest teachers in the galaxy, your victims." The truth settled over the assembly like a suffocating blanket. Humanity hadn't appeared from nowhere. They had been there all along, hidden in plain sight, learning from everyone the mercenaries had ever wronged. "We are what happens when a species evolves not just to survive, but to thrive in any environment," Sarah continued. "We are what happens when intelligence is paired with absolute determination. We are what happens when the prey becomes the predator." As she walked toward the exit, Sarah paused at the threshold. "The galaxy is under new management now. We suggest you adapt quickly." The great mercenary era was over. The age of humanity had begun, and across the stars, a simple truth echoed through every civilized world. They had always looked like the other species of the galaxy, but humans had never been like anyone else. In the vast expanse of space, predators and prey had switched positions, and the galaxy would never be the same again.